All right, I just clicked record. That way we have it ready to go. Might forget otherwise. Thank you for some of you, you're sending me messages privately and publicly. I'll be checking the chat on the side. All right, one more minute and then we'll get started. Thank you for your patience. Okay, I think we're ready to go, ready to get started. Happy to have everyone on here joining me today for our second workshop of our McNair Summer Workshop Series. Today's workshop is on getting ready for grad school. What does that mean? This workshop is the opportunity for you to get some advice on things that might help you to prepare for applying to grad school this fall. So what is the purpose of this workshop? Let me click. It is to provide you with insight on what to do to prepare for applying to grad programs this fall. So I'm going to be covering a couple of slides. And as I go over the content, you are welcome to add any questions in the chat. You can put them in publicly or you can send them as a private message to me and I'll read them anonymously. I will try to kind of cover some of the content on the slides and also check your questions or comments in the chat so that way we don't have to wait until the end. Sometimes I cover a lot of content and run out of time. So I want to make sure I get your questions as they come up. All right, so what's the agenda for today? First things first, if you're interested in going to graduate school, you need to know what the components of a grad school application are. So we're going to cover that initially. After that, we're going to talk about what are the things that you should be doing this summer, especially if you're a rising senior and you're looking to apply to grad school this fall. Or some of you might have actually recently graduated and you're still going to apply this fall, or some of you are a little ahead of the game and you don't plan to apply until next fall or even the fall after that. You're getting this information early. So if you're going to apply this fall, what should you do this summer? What does a general admissions timeline look like? So what is it actually gonna look like when you apply? When will you hear back? When will you have to say yes? All the things that come up, we're going to cover that as well. And then the last part is what to do this fall if you're serious about applying. What are the things that you should consider? All right, so this is obviously an assumption, but some of you that are part of this workshop are McNair scholars. Some of you that are part of this workshop are Edison scholars. Some of you are part of other summer research programs on campus. And so if you are involved in research, undergraduate research, some of these things may be true for you of the preparation that you have done thus far or the preparation that you are kind of gathering this summer. So you're conducting research under the direction of a faculty mentor. Yes, that's preparation. The other thing you're doing is because you're working with a faculty mentor, you're developing positive relationships with them. You may be taking summer sessions. If so, you want to make sure that you make a good impression, you do well in your classes, you look back at your transcripts and think about some of the major courses you've taken where you've done well. You may want to reach out to those professors and just kind of start to notify people that you're interested in applying to graduate school so that you can develop those strong ties, since those are the people that you're going to be asking for recommendation letters. So developing positive relationships is important. The other thing that you may have done, and if not, you're going to want to do that this summer, is drafting and revising your grad school list. You can't apply to grad school unless you have a list. And ideally, this is not always the case, especially in light of the pandemic. I know a lot of folks, their GPA got hit in some way, shape, or form. But ideally, you are maintaining as competitive of a GPA as possible. I don't like to give numbers because a competitive GPA means something different in every major. For some folks, it is, the low 3.0s or the high 3.0s. So it's hard to say, but whatever is competitive in your field, you can find that out by contacting grad students, professors in your discipline. And then last but not least, is studying and taking the GRE. And this is what I added if required. So in years past, I would say, definitely study, take it. You have to, it's a requirement. It's a hurdle that comes up for a lot of students. But recently we've noticed that fewer programs are actually requiring it. More and more programs are making it optional, and some are not asking for it at all. So if you are one of the lucky ones where you have a list of 8, 10, 12 programs that you're going to apply to this fall, and none of them require it, then you're in luck. You don't have to take it. But for most of us, you will have to take it at least for 1 or 2 programs that require it. Okay, so here we go. This is the graduate application materials. So technically, like for most programs, you will be asked for all of these materials, or a good portion of these materials. You'll be asked for an application form, like opening up, going into the portal, setting up your account, username, password. Make sure you save those usernames and passwords because it can get very confusing if you don't. And just be on the lookout because the application portals start to open up, some in August, but a good majority of them on September 1st, they open up. So just keep that date, take that note down, September 1st, that's when you'll want to go into the portals to start to open up the accounts and fill out the application forms with your basic contact info. And sometimes they'll ask you for a lot of the information you have on your resume or your CV, your curriculum vitae. So start to input that info just to stay a little ahead of things. The next thing that they will ask for, and again, most programs will ask for this, and sometimes they don't call it this, but generally speaking, they ask for a statement of purpose. Sometimes they also ask for a personal statement. Sometimes they ask for a diversity statement. Sometimes they ask for one statement that's a combination of the three. Sometimes they ask for a statement of purpose, and then they ask for a personal statement that sounds like a diversity statement. So if that confuses you, I know it's confusing. You want to check out our next workshop. We're going to have another workshop on the differences in the grad school essays. My colleague, our writing specialist, Chris Morales, is going to do that workshop. So you don't want to miss out on that. But yes, you will have to write at least one essay to apply to graduate school. The next part, and I think this might be the most anxiety-inducing aspect of applying to grad school, at least that has been my impression thus far, is asking for recommendation letters. I know it's anxiety-inducing because for a lot of us, that's the part of the application that's out of your control. And it can be scary to ask professors, to ask experts in your field, to ask supervisors or any other folks who can comment on you in a professional manner. It's intimidating to ask for letters of rec, but yes, you need them. And typically they ask for 3. Every once in a while, a program might ask for 2. Every once in a while, they might ask for 4, but typically it's 3. Next are your exam scores. So I put the GRE. Some disciplines ask for the GRE subject exam. I know one of you recently asked me that you may have to take the GRE math test. Sometimes it's a literature test. Sometimes it's a chemistry test. There used to be a bio test that luckily for them, it's no longer, I don't think it's around anymore. But take a look at that. Do you need to take a specific exam and have that exam score for your applications? Sometimes it's other types of exams, depending on, like, some students are interested in teaching certification programs, and then they need to take a certain program, a certain exam for that. So just be on the lookout for what exams you may need to take. Okay, number 5, transcripts. This one is technically it's an easy thing to do. It's very straightforward. You just order your transcripts and send them out. A lot of programs don't even ask for official transcripts until after you've been officially admitted. They're okay with you sending unofficial transcripts. So you just log on to Gold or log on to your website, download them, and then upload them. Pretty straightforward, right? Yes, but sometimes students forget to do it. And sometimes there might be 8 out of 10 ask for unofficial and 2 out of 10 ask for official transcripts. And then you ask for them. And then, your deadline's in December. And when you ask, the university's closed, and then you can't get them processed and mailed on time. So again, this is where it helps to do things early, because if you do it early and you figure out, oh, these 2 programs actually need the official transcripts, I need to pay for them, get them mailed out, and wait for the processing time, then you won't run into those issues of delays. So transcripts, straightforward, but you want to do it early. The same goes for application fee waivers. Every single year, I work with McNair scholars. We always have at least one McNair scholar that misses a fee waiver deadline. Applying for fee waivers is actually a separate application process. That's something that a lot of folks don't realize. And for some programs, they have deadlines. Not every program has a fee waiver deadline, but some of them do. And there's certain forms that you need to fill out, or maybe certain forms that you need to have a staff member fill out for you. So it's good to just get ahead of that and start to ask the different programs you're applying to if they have fee waivers, see if you qualify, and if so, how do you apply, and do they have a separate deadline? Okay, number 7 is writing sample. And this is for humanities and social science students. I have yet to come or to run into a STEM program that has asked for a writing sample. So I don't think that's a thing in STEM grad programs. But if you are in the humanities and social sciences, make sure that you have something, a writing sample. Ideally, if you're doing a summer research program, you can write a paper at the end of the summer based on the work that you're doing now, and that can work as your writing sample. And then the last thing is just to keep in mind, if you're in a particular field that asks for supplemental materials, then take note of that and add that to your checklist of things that you want to work on. We've had students in the past submit portfolios. We've had students have to submit a record of lab hours. We've had students who have done teaching memos and teaching demos and have had to record themselves teaching. This is for like master's programs in teaching. So just keep in mind, there might be extra things. And if so, then just take note of it and plan for it. All right, so I actually want to hear from you in the chat. If you can tell me, because I just went over a lot. It's like everything that you could possibly need for an application. So what's the one part of the application process that most worries you? Just put it in the chat, just a couple of you. I'll read some of them aloud. The writing sample, oh my gosh, yes. Especially because the differences in the page length, some want 10 pages, some want 25 pages, and then how do you account for all of them? I see GRE, personal statements, taking these exams, yes, the statement of purpose, recommendation letters drove my anxiety up. Preparing for exams, see, so essentially everything. And I'm laughing, but it's okay. We know that it's hard, which is why we're having these workshops to help you out with this. And preparing for exams, you want to find out, that's why I say first find out where you're applying to, and then find out if you actually even need to take the exam. Because imagine you're stressing out all this time and you realize you don't have to take it, or maybe they're optional. So it's good to to do your planning early. So you're all ahead of the game by being here with me today. Okay, so now what can you do this summer aside from attending our workshops? You can finalize your graduate school list. And I'll talk a little bit more about that after this, about what are the things to consider when you're finalizing your list. You can contact faculty, and these are professors and programs that you're interested in applying to, and ask them about their compatibility of their research interests with yours, about their current research projects. Definitely ask them if they're accepting students for this coming cycle. And then you can also contact graduate students. So even though I think a lot of people stress the importance of contacting faculty before you apply to grad school, in fact, in STEM programs, it's it's a part of the hidden curriculum. There's this expectation that you will apply, that you will reach out and contact professors before you apply. But it's also just as important to talk to grad students. Why? Because grad students will tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. You can ask them about their experiences in the program. You can ask them about the professors they work with. So they will really be able to tell you things that may help you determine if it's a good fit. So definitely contact both. And then decide whether or not you need to take or retake the GRE. So some of you won't need to take it at all. Some of you will need to take it once and, one and done. Others may be in a scenario where you look up your programs and you realize they have a minimum score requirement and you're just shy of that minimum score. Maybe their minimum is 160 and you're at a 158 or 159, then you probably should retake it. And then you can start drafting your essays. So again, shout out to our next workshop on writing grad school essays. Get a head start on those. And last but not least, near the end of the summer is a good time to reach out to professors and start to secure your recommenders. So you're reaching out to professors from the programs you're interested in applying to, but then you're also reaching out to professors who are here who may write you letters of rec. Okay, so let's talk about the grad school list, because it's really hard to move forward with your planning without this. I feel like this is step one. If you're going to apply to grad school, you absolutely have to have this. And I say finalizing because ideally you already have some programs in mind now, but you want to take it more seriously and think, okay, the programs on my list right now are the ones that I'm actually going to apply to this fall. No, like maybe I will apply to Princeton. Maybe I'll apply to Cal State LA. Maybe I'll apply to UC Davis. No. Like, okay, I'm going to apply. So take it seriously. Things to consider is, actually, I see a question before I get to the things to consider. Does it matter which faculty you work with in grad school? Yes. And does it matter if they are professors, assistant professors? So the title and ranking of the professors? Yes, it matters. In my opinion, and you can take it with a grain of salt because I'm not a professor myself, but in my opinion, the single most important thing about the person that you work with is the fit. And the fit, can be a number of factors. It can include the research that they're doing and make sure that it's compatible with what you want to do, because if they're not doing something you want to do and you're going to spend 5-6 years or more of your life doing this, I don't know if that makes any sense. The other thing is also compatibility in terms of mentoring style, because it's a serious commitment. It's a long-term relationship that you're going to have with this individual. So 5 to 6 years with someone who you don't quite click well based on differences in mentoring styles, I don't know about that. But then, yes, you mentioned ranking. Ranking is important to some extent too. If they are assistant professors and they're trying to get tenure, then that's something that's going to take up a good portion of their time. But maybe they might be even more invested in you because you will be one of their newer students, and they're going to want you to succeed because you succeeding will make them look good. But then if you work with someone who's senior, who's established, who's a full professor, who is a big name in the field, having them advocate for you, having their name on your letters of rec will hold more weight when you go out and try to apply for jobs. So it really is, it's a tough call, But at the end of the day, I would say you should base it on fit. So if there's good rapport and they're doing work that you want to do that excites you, and you see yourself doing that long term, I would go with that. I see another question here. What would you say is more important in choosing professors, the project or the work environment? I don't think you can really decide between the two. I think it's a combination of the two, because if it's a very exciting project, but it's a very toxic work environment and it's not sustainable for you to even keep working there with that person, then you see what I mean? Or vice versa. If it's a really wonderful environment, really amazing colleagues, and you just are not interested in that topic whatsoever, and you just can't imagine, you dread working on that project every day, again, it's not going to work out. So a combination of both. Okay, so things to consider. The location. You might have someone who's perfect for you, who you just really want to work with, but it's in a location that you just can't see yourself in, or it's in a location where you don't physically feel safe there. You want to keep in mind, like, what are places that you can realistically live in? You want to keep in mind the intellectual environment. What is the culture there? What does the program prioritize? What are the types of projects that they're working on? Is it interdisciplinary, or is it a more established discipline that does things, in a more conventional way? Are you interested in the work of multiple professors? A lot of people will find one person they're really excited with, to work with, and then they can't find a second or a third person. And then what happens if that person is no longer around? Maybe they retire. Maybe they do a lateral move and get a job somewhere else. Maybe, hopefully this doesn't happen, but maybe they pass, like, you'd never know. So it's not good to put all your eggs in one basket. And so you want to identify 2 to 3 professors per program. The reputation of the department and faculty also is important. And I say the department too, not just the professors you're going to work with, because some programs have very toxic reputations, or maybe the reputation is that their graduates are not being supported as they go on and apply for jobs. And so you want to think about, where are recent graduates going? What are recent graduates doing? And if they're doing the type of work, or they're in careers that you're interested in, then that's a good sign. So that's good. That ties along to the career track of the recent graduates, the demographics of the students. So that's where the culture, support systems, all of that is important. If you don't see yourself reflected there, you don't think you're going to get the support that you need, and you're the only first-gen student, you're the only student of color, you're the only whatever it is, like working class student, it's gonna be tough. So keep in mind what the demographics are there. The social environment, maybe you are a very social person who wants to be in a big city and do a lot of things. And this program is great, but it's in the middle of nowhere in a small college town, and you just have nothing to do and you're isolated. You know what I mean? So think about the social environment, think about the support systems, access to resources. Bigger campuses sometimes have more resources, smaller campuses sometimes have tighter communities. And all of this is why it's important to talk to the professors and the grad students too. I see another question here. What is the best way to find faculty members at grad programs and reach out? So the way that you can find that, I don't know if I may have a slide where I cover how to identify professors, but I'll talk about it right now really quickly. It's as you're doing your research, start to think about who are the scholars and professors that keep coming up, and then see if they're renowned professors. Okay, where did they go to graduate school? Where are they now? Where are their graduates now? You can talk to other professors, so your current faculty mentor, current grad students, TAs, and ask them for their input. Odds are they know of good programs. You can also, some students do it by going to US News and Reports and checking out what the top 20 programs are in their field. This is not always the most efficient way to do it, but it does ensure that you're applying to top programs. And then once you see what the top 20 are, going to the departmental pages and looking up the faculty and finding out the ones whose work mirrors your own or whose work you would be interested in doing or working on in grad school. Those are a couple of ways that you would identify or find professors. And then reaching out, usually the faculty page will have their email address. If they don't, most institutions have a directory. So I always do this. I just Google UCLA directory, UCSB directory, UC, whatever institution it is, that and directory. And then they usually have like a student or staff or faculty directory, and I look them up and I find their email. So even if they're trying to hide their email, they're not going to hide from me or from you, since I'm teaching you this trick. So reaching out is letting them know that you're a prospective student, that you're interested in applying to graduate school, that you're wondering if they'll be accepting any students, and see if they'd be willing to meet with you, offer a few minutes of their time to meet with you. All right, let's keep going. All right, so I actually want to talk to one of you. And if one of you would like to participate in live mentoring and talk to you a little bit about your grad school list. So is there anybody today that has a grad school list or an idea of the programs that they're going to apply to? Who would like to? Rosalind, I see your hand is up. Let's do it. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello.
Okay, thank you so much for participating.
Sure.
Okay, so for today, for the live mentoring session, I want to get to know a little bit more about you and what's your current major, what field or discipline you're interested in for grad school.
Okay, so I am actually a recent graduate from the Religious Studies department.
Religious studies, okay.
Yeah. And my concentration was in Jewish studies.
Mm-hmm.
And also I have really bad allergies the last couple of days. So if you need me to repeat myself because you can't understand, please do so.
I can hear you fine. So religious
Okay.
studies, but specifically Jewish studies. And for grad school, what programs are you interested in applying to?
Yeah, so for grad school, I was looking into clinical psychology.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes, and more specifically like neuropsychology.
Okay.
It's like a track that I'm looking at, as well as school psychology. So those
are very different.
They are. Okay. However, they cross with a lot of the children that I've worked with. So those are some of the things. But I've been doing this the summer boot camp for the GRE boot camp, and I'm finding that there are other tracks of psychology that I didn't think about, but that I found interesting. So I'm looking at actually doing some research or being on a research lab, a memory lab. So it's neuroscience but still under psychology, such a large umbrella.
So do you have a list of grad schools right now?
I do have a list of grad schools. It's not that large.
How many do you have right now?
So right now I have 3 programs.
Okay, and are they all clinical, school, or something else, or?
They are not all. They're actually one of each. So
okay.
So I'm looking at UCSB's CCSP program with where I would look at school psychology. And which would be ideal because then I can also practice as a clinical psychologist.
Yeah, you get both. Yeah.
I get both. So that's wonderful. The other one is another UCSB one, which was the newer one, and that is with the PBS.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's psychological and brain sciences?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And with that one, I've been looking at perhaps cognition, perception, and cognitive neuroscience, or I'm not really sure. I'm like, there's 4 and they all look really great for different reasons. Yeah.
And then what's your last one, real
And then
quickly?
my last one is Fielding Graduate School or University, Fielding
Mhm.
Graduate University, and they have a clinical psychology program. They actually do have a neuropsychology track. They also have a social justice one. So
Oh, very cool.
um, yeah, so I would be interested
Mm.
actually in adding classes for both of those, but it's clinical psych.
So, the next question is, how did you choose those programs? But it sounds like you're going based off not a discipline per se, but what they offer, and a lot of them kind of overlap between the counseling, school psych, and neuroscience. And then, have you identified individuals that you could work with? So 2 to 3 from each program.
Yes, I have. So
Okay.
and maybe not 2 or 3, well, at least 2. So with Fielding, you don't have to select a faculty member up front to work with. That's something that they have you do once you're accepted into the program.
Is it a master's or
No, it's
under?
actually a PhD program,
Oh, okay.
and it is accredited by APA, the American Psychological Association. They're actually the only distributed learning model that is accredited. Yeah, accredited. Excuse me.
Mhm.
And it's with like older students in mind. So that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons I'm non-traditional student. And so just having that in mind is like really great for where I am.
I know I've had other students who have asked, and I know you were at another workshop that I facilitated about like, whether or not to do a part-time program or a full-time program. So those are some things to consider. In your case, you definitely want to expand your list, add a
Yes.
couple more programs. It might be tough to find the ones that are a perfect fit because your interests are so varied. So I would recommend, which is what I going back to what I said earlier about talking to these folks that you've identified. So start with these 3, contact, at least one professor or person from that program, and then at least one current graduate student from that program to find out what it's like, and then ask them for recommendation. The grad students in particular, ask them, when you applied to graduate programs, like, were there others that you were keeping in mind? And, that way they can give you their suggestions. And then based on those suggestions, you can kind of like branch out. So yeah, definitely these look like good fit programs just from the brief description that you gave me, but it's just about finding more of them. And because if you only apply to 3, sometimes it can be a numbers game. You don't know what's going on at those institutions. You don't know if they're accepting students this year. That's the other reason to talk to the professors, because what if they're not accepting students? So the more programs that you can apply to, the better off you'll be, but you also don't want to apply to too many where you're overwhelmed. So, I always tell students 8 to 12 if you can handle it. If you can't handle that many, then at least 4 to 6, just so that way you feel like you've really done, like, you've gone full force with applying and not just tested the waters.
Of course. I have one quick question. I actually thought that I was going to be finished last year. And so I actually contacted a professor at UCSB's CCSP program. She was absolutely wonderful and even said that she would look out for my application, but it didn't work out that way, COVID.
I know.
And
Yeah.
so then I did not graduate until this year. And my question is, how would you say to reach out to that professor? Because I really would love to work with her,
Yeah.
but I feel like I sort of like messed up in a way because
Everything you've told me right now would be okay. You can say, like, dear Professor so and so, I'm not sure if you remember me, but I actually reached out to you this time last year. I was planning on applying. Unfortunately, my circumstances changed and I ended up graduating till this year. I think a lot of folks will be understanding because of COVID.
Okay.
And then you can say, I am still very much looking forward to potentially working with you and would greatly appreciate if we could meet. Or and then if she offers again to help you with your materials after meeting,
Okay.
then great. But I think just an update, just sending them an update would be fine. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rosalind. We're going to keep going. So hopefully some of y'all can use Rosalind's example for your own situation. If you also like have 3 programs or still kind of trying to reach out to people, it's fine to do that now. All right, so going back to the conversation, let me see, actually, I saw that someone asked, how many schools do you recommend we apply to? I did talk about that, 8 to 12 if you can manage it. How can you look into career tracks of the recent graduates? This is where you should talk to the current graduate students, and they can let you know and put you in touch with recent graduates. And the current graduate students, usually they're listed on the departmental pages. And if not, some folks use LinkedIn. Yeah, I would say a LinkedIn, or you can contact the graduate advisor for the department and let them know, I'm a prospective student. I would like to be in touch with recent graduates. Is there any way, like, do you all have a listserv, or is there any way that you can put me in touch with someone and start from there? Okay, so contacting faculty, how do you do it? Like I said earlier, you can search the departmental sites. Oh yeah, so I wasn't sure if I was covering it, but yes, apparently I am covering it. You can ask the professors, once you actually reach out to them and you're meeting with them, ask them about obviously their interests, but also you can ask them about the culture of the department, about their mentoring style, very important for you. What if they're hands off? What if they're hands off? What if they're micromanaging? What if they just go missing? You don't know, so it's good to find out. And ask them, very, very important, if they're taking new grad students. If you don't contact them, maybe you're going to waste your time and apply to a program that's not going to accept any students. Contact them to find out what's the deal, what's going on in that department. And then grad students, don't forget them. Ask them about the culture, ask them about the professors, ask them about the professor you're interested in working with. Maybe they work with them, maybe they know someone who works with them who can talk to you. They will tell you honestly, the honest feedback. Yes, this person's great. Yes, this person's kind. Ooh, this person's a little tough, blunt, or whatever it is. And that way, you know, what is funding like there? You can ask them that. What is it like living there? Resources, support systems, housing, any of that you can ask the grad students. All right, so again, want to make sure you're still with me. Tell me what your biggest hesitation is when contacting faculty and grad students, because, and I say what's holding you back, because every year I tell students over and over and over again, please contact professors, please contact professors. And what do? They don't contact professors. And I have a feeling, maybe if I project, and when I was an undergrad, I was always very intimidated, and I thought that I was going to get found out, that they were going to realize I'm an imposter and I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, and I shouldn't be applying, and I'm not ready. That's why I didn't contact them, but I didn't have someone reminding me over and over and over again to do it. So some folks are like, I don't know what to say. Yes, it can be awkward. Most professors don't reply to emails. Oh my gosh. Yes, you have to be persistent. Not knowing how to approach the conversation. Either you feel like you're too casual or too informal. That they will say that they don't have time to meet. Okay, if they don't have time to meet, what's the worst thing that can happen? They say no, you don't meet with them, you end up where you started. If you don't contact them, you're still not going to meet with them. You know what I mean? Being overwhelmed with everything. Yeah, it can be overwhelming, because if you contact too many people and all of a sudden everybody says yes and everybody wants to meet with you the same week, yes, that has happened before. So that's why I say, like, just start with 1 or 2 at a time and see what happens. Wait a week for them to get back to you. If after a week they don't respond, send a reminder email. Once you get through those, then, you know, reach out to others, or maybe just reach out to the faculty from your top 3 programs. That way, you know, you at least reached out to someone. And then not feeling mentally prepared. So feeling like you need to be an expert. Yes. So you're like, oh, now I'm supposed to read their article. They're going to know that I don't know anything about their research. They're going to know that I just looked up the faculty interest page, and that's all I know about them, because I've been there, done that. Yes. So feeling, yes, that laugh emoji, feeling like you need to know everything. You don't need to know everything, but if it makes you feel better, it does help to read their most recent article or their most recent work or book or whatever. If it's a book, read the intro. Just have some familiarity on their work to have something to say, but they don't expect you to be an expert, please. And if they do, and they're making you feel bad about it, then maybe they're not someone you want to work with. Remember, just as much as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them when you're applying to grad school. Having an agenda prepared has helped me so much. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that you feel that that's helped you. So maybe other people can have an agenda and some talking points that maybe you can kind of go over each time you meet with the professor. That way you feel, that helps me too. Scripts, notes, having something. Zoom has been great for me and my anxiety because I can just have notes and I don't freak out. So if you are like that too, it's just have an agenda or some notes that will help you. All right, let's keep going. Let me check the time. Okay, I got 15 more minutes. So quickly about the GRE, how do you determine if you should take it or retake it? I've already covered this. So if it's required, then you need to take it. If it's optional or not required for all of your programs, then no, you don't need to take it. If there's a minimum score in your discipline, that might be the case for physics students, that might be the case for econ students. If they flat out say on their website, the minimum score is X and you're just shy of that score, then you should retake it. If you don't even know where you fall, you can always take a diagnostics exam. They're offered by different programs like Magoosh and Princeton Review and Kaplan. It's free. You can take the exam and it's not the real exam, but it'll give you an idea of where you score. Oh, question, is it, if it is optional, will not taking it hurt your application? If it's optional, it's not supposed to hurt your application. That's why it's optional. But I've said this before, don't be surprised if a program might ask you why you didn't take it. They might ask you for a short essay or a short paragraph or statement, a couple of lines, why you didn't take it. Okay, so now the essays. I am not going to cover what the three statements are and the differences between the three because we just don't have enough time and we have a whole workshop dedicated to that. But what I am going to say about this is that it's best to start drafting them now. Draft them early. How? This is why, again, you can't do anything without the grad school list. Go to your programs, look the top 3 on your grad school list, and find out, a lot of times they have the prompt listed on their website for the personal statement or the statement of purpose, or they'll tell you what they're asking for. If they don't, you can still write a general statement of purpose. And there's certain key points and certain things you want to include in it that we'll cover at that workshop, and get started. And then you can tailor them once you actually open up the portals. You can have like a tailoring paragraph or a section of the paper or the essay where you focus on the program itself. But yes, draft them early, get help from your faculty mentors, from grad students, from staff who is available to help you out, from your peers. The more people can look at it, the better. The more drafts you can get through, the better they are. A lot of times what you're going to do is, I put the pro tip, ask for samples. You can ask those grad students that you're contacting if they'd feel comfortable sharing any samples. And if not, they can offer you some advice. So if you have samples, this is where it's good and bad to have a sample. It's good because you're like, oh, that's really, I like how they wrote this, or that's interesting how they like structured theirs. But then you're looking at your first draft that's going to be super messy and all over the place, and their final draft, and maybe they had to go through 6, 7, 8 drafts to get it so polished. And then you're going to feel like, well, I can't write like that, or I'm never going to get in, or mine's not good enough. So just remember that when you do look at samples, look at them just to figure out, get some ideas for like how they structured it, what kind of experience did they have, like what, what what about this applicant like got them in? So look at it as a sample, but don't compare yourself too much, especially don't compare your first draft to their final draft. All right, letters of recommendation. I put here, did you know that requesting recommendation letters is a major hurdle in applying to grad programs? I've seen a lot of students who didn't apply because of this hurdle, because they didn't think that they had enough recommenders to write them letters. So how and when do you request recommendation letters? And here I put make the ask. When you're thinking about your recommenders, ideally it's someone you've worked with who knows you very well, but we don't always live in an ideal world. So if that doesn't work out for you, you want to think about the professors whose courses you took and you did well in. Ideally, these are folks in your field or in the field that you're looking to go to for grad school. You want to make the ask in a kind and courteous manner. You want to be mindful of their time, and you want to ask them for a strong letter of rec. No, I was hoping if you would be willing to support me in the form of writing me a strong letter of rec. I can provide you with any materials that you need, including a copy of my graduate school application essays, my updated curriculum vitae, and my list of graduate programs with deadlines. So make the ask, respond back and say, thank you so much. I will provide you the materials by X date, ideally a month before your deadline. So let's say you ask them at the beginning of fall quarter and it's, what is it, end of September. And then you tell them you're going to get them the materials by at least 1 month before your first deadline. Your first deadline is December 1st. So you want to get it to them by November 1st. You get what I mean? Like thinking about the timing, and then send reminder emails. So a reminder email 2 weeks before. Thank you so much for agreeing to write me a letter. I just want to remind you the deadline's approaching in 2 weeks. Let me know if you need anything from me. And then 1 week, just another reminder. Hope you're doing well. That's it. Like, just another reminder about my upcoming recommendation letters, which are due on X date. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. That's it. All right, now let's talk about the timeline, because I think this is, the second to last thing I'm going to cover. So the general admissions timeline is applications start to open up in August and September. If you're applying for external fellowships, a lot of students also apply to the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, and that comes up really quickly. It's due in October. Then for most PhD programs and some master's programs too, but mostly PhD programs, the departmental deadlines are in December. If you decide to apply to the Ford pre-doctoral fellowship, a lot of students also apply for the Ford. So the NSF and the Ford are the two big ones. There are other external fellowships too, but these are the two big ones. So Ford, the deadline is December 16th. And then January, you'll start to get, they may start to nominate you for funding if you applied to programs. So this is for internal, not external funding, but internal funding within the program that you apply to. I see a question here. I worked on a research project with a professor 2 years. Wait, how many recommenders would we normally need? 3. So plan for 3. If you have 4, then it doesn't hurt to have an extra one, but plan for 3, at least 3. And then it said, is it okay if I ask them for a letter of rec, even though you worked with them 2 years ago? It's been so long. Yes, it's okay. If they're a professor, this is part of their service work. You just want to make sure that you say, I hope you remember me. I worked with you on a research project 2 years ago. I just wanted to give you a personal update. I'm currently doing X and X and, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. I'm currently finishing up my senior year of blah, or I'm currently wrapping up my first year after graduating, whatever it is. And I am planning on applying to graduate school. And I was hoping that you might, again, support me in the form of writing me a recommendation letter or strong letter. So yes, you can do that. It's okay to do that. And plenty of people who take gap years do this. Okay, so going on with the timeline, January, February, you may start to hear admissions notifications or actually invitations for interviews, for interview days. In March, usually between January, February, and March, you start to find out if you got into these programs. So this is where the admissions processing and notifications will continue. Most graduate programs, with the exception of a few master's programs, but most graduate programs, and definitely all PhD programs that I know of, will have that tax deadline. April 15th is the deadline for you to commit to going there to SIR. And it's all usually the deadline to like confirm whatever financial support offer you got. May 1st is another deadline for, especially for master's programs. Some master's programs have later deadlines and some of them even have rolling deadlines. So it's not even May 1st. Sometimes the rolling deadlines, you can have a deadline in June. My husband applied to a master's program a few years ago and his deadline was in June. It was so late. And then June 1st, grad division asks for final admissions, decisions for any outstanding SIRs. So yeah, between April and June, you'll find out where you're going. And at that point, you can start to prepare for the transition. Should we reach out to the professors we want to work with before we apply to see if they are taking graduate students? Yes, that's what I've been talking about. Definitely. And then is it okay to use our Gmail instead of UCSB email to communicate with professors? Honestly, you might get more of a hit if it's a university email than a Gmail. So I'm just being honest about that. They might not respond right away if they think it's like a what is it, like a unsafe email or message. But if you're going to use Gmail, go ahead and use Gmail. If you have a contact or someone that knows that person who can introduce you to that person with that Gmail, then great, go ahead and do it. Yeah, I would prefer that you use your university email, but if you are persistent and you send reminder emails, even if it's a Gmail, they should respond. All right, this is the last slide. Let me check my time. Okay, we're good, 1:54. What about the fall? Oh my goodness, if you're rising seniors, a good portion of you who are actually going to be applying to grad school this fall, what do? It's a serious commitment to apply, just like it's a serious commitment to go to grad school. So if you can afford to, if your counselor says it's okay to do this, take a lighter load. How do you take a lighter load? Instead of taking 16, 18 units, try to take 12. If you can take a course 199 to get unit credit for the work that you're doing to apply to graduate programs, if there's a professor of yours that's really supportive and would be willing to give you credit for that, take a 199. Reduce your commitments. If you can reduce your hours for your part-time job and still be able to pay your bills, if you can maybe put a pause on your extracurricular commitments, leadership commitments, just for the fall, you should do that. Get organized. So already in your head, plan, okay, every week I need 4 to 5 hours put aside for this. Have a study group or an accountability buddy, so whatever is going to help you to get it done. And then if questions come up, don't hesitate to ask for help. You can ask your mentors, you can ask peers, just figure out who's around that can help you with the process. And I think that is my last slide. I'm going to stop sharing. Give me a second. And I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes to see if you all have any extra questions before we wrap up. And you're welcome to also unmute yourself if you have a question as well. And I'll start with, I see Rosalind, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Just a quick question. In addition to our professors of using our UCSB mail, would you say when we are applying to graduate school that we should also use our UCSB, or should we use a Gmail when applying?
I would say at the end of the day, they might have their preference in terms of who they respond to, but use the email that you're going to be using most often and that you're going to be checking most frequently, because sometimes what has happened is someone might respond back, or you might get an admissions notification sent to that email that you used, and it might go to spam, or maybe you miss it because you don't check that email as often. So I know you said you are a recent graduate, so if you're no longer really using your UCSB email regularly, go ahead and use your personal email or whatever email you are checking frequently.
Thank you. So
You're welcome.
UCSB for the letters of rec with our professors, and then using whichever one we use most often for applying to grad school.
But if it helps you to have everything in one place and it's going to be confusing to have two separate emails, I would say just use your personal email for everything.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? Got 3 more minutes. Colin, go ahead.
Hey, I guess I'm still trying to figure out my question, but it's mainly about like contacting faculty members that we'd be interested in working with in grad school, because I'm a physics major with interest in teaching physics better, so at physics education, I guess. I don't know like how to find faculty members who are also into that, because most physics faculty members do just straight up physics research.
Do you know of any individuals who are in the career of your choice, like who are doing what you want to do long term?
I think the career of my choice is being a professor.
Oh, okay. So then if you want to become a professor, are there any professors on campus who you look up to, whose teaching style you appreciate or
Yeah, I know Gershwami, but I don't know if she's on campus for the summer. And yeah, so maybe I'm just gonna have to stalk her or something.
I mean, you could ask if she has some time to talk to you about that, and then ask for for her input on advice on programs, other professors that you could potentially work with, and then just tell her that you're interested in physics education specifically, and not maybe not theoretical or experimental physics. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll start there. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. And then could ask Dr. B about, okay, great. Thanks for the suggestion, Sarah. Wasn't sure if that was a question. Anyone else? 1 more minute. So I got 1 more question if you have it. Okay. I guess we will end with that. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you found it useful, and hopefully we'll see you at the next workshop. Have a good rest of the day.